I just felt like I was so addicted to this kind of false version of my life that it was just taking over. And the thing that really upset me is the press ran with that. They were saying, oh, look, he's not the perfect happy-go-lucky kid you think he is. He's having a nervous breakdown in New York. If I was having a mental breakdown, that's not for you to report on. They took the story in the wrong direction and they kind of painted people looking for help in the wrong light.
The best-selling author and host.
The #1 health and wellness podcast.
On Purpose with Jay Shetty.
A lot of studies show that how we were loved or unloved between the ages of 0 to 5 impact the next 15, 25, 50 years of our life.
Wow.
And how we give love to ourselves and how we give love to others. And so I was thinking, do you have a core memory or an experience with your family from childhood that kind of embodies the feeling you have about them now, or that keeps you tied close to them?
I'd say sort of more than a memory is just a feeling that I could say all of my brothers and I had, was that because our dad's a comedian, his job only ever existed once we had gone to bed, and our mum worked from home. She was a photographer. So to us as kids, our parents didn't really work. They just were always home. So we had this amazing foundation where no matter any time of the day, either mum or dad would be at the house. And we felt so kind of solid as a family, which is why I kind of have this dream of one day having kids and putting my work to bed and just kind of being there as a dad. Because I really admire how my dad was around. You know, being a comedian is a very, very volatile job. The highs and lows are so extreme. And as kids, we never saw that. The only version of my dad I ever saw was the happy dad, let's go to the park. We used to play this game called Golf Goals, where we would go down to the park. There's like this big blue metal goal, and we would just fire golf balls into that goal every day. And he would give us 10p every time a ball went in the goal. And that was kind of the foundation of our golf and all that sort of stuff. So for me, broader than a core memory was the idea of always feeling connected and safe within my family unit. And I think a large portion of that is that my mum and dad have always been such a solid team, and they've always been there for us.
Yeah, wow. Have they, as you've grown older, have they kind of opened up about some of the challenges that they were going through that they obviously didn't show you and your family when you were kids? Because I can imagine, we always talk about this, right? Like being a comedian is extremely difficult because you're making everyone else laugh. At the same time, it's a career path that, like you said, is completely volatile.
Sure.
Have they opened up as time's gone on? And how has that felt when you've gone from like seeing your parents always being happy to being like, oh wait, there was all this other stuff going on?
Absolutely they have. And it's not even sometimes things that they've told us. It's just things that we've grown up to recognize. As a young kid, you know, you're not looking to how's my mum feeling, how's my dad feeling. And now as an older person, you know, those are things I care about. I want to call my mum because I know it will brighten her day. So that's all part of growing up, I guess. So seeing the way in which my dad's job affects him or my dad's job affects my mum is something we've all sort of come to terms with, and he's amazing at it. I mean, to be honest, I say affect, it doesn't really affect anyone. He's so good at handling it, which is a lot of why I feel like I am the way I am. For example, The Crowded Room's come out. The critics absolutely hated it. They thought it was the worst thing they've ever seen, and it doesn't really upset me. And I think a large part of my feeling towards that has come from my dad being able to do a gig, the gig not going well, him brushing it off his shoulder and just right onto the next one.
Yeah, wow. And first of all, I want to point that out as well. So I've been watching The Crowded Room.
Right.
And me and my wife have been watching it together, and we were actually really enjoying it.
Good, thank
and
you.
so like, we were actually loving it because I love a show that has mystery.
Sure.
That's trying to like get me to figure it out and get me
Right.
to think about it. I'm kind of confused, and I love stuff like that. Like I'm
Totally.
a massive Christopher Nolan fan.
Yeah,
So all my
absolutely.
favorite movies are Nolan movies, and the reason why I love them is because I have no idea what's going on.
Sure.
And that's
And you
what
gotta
keeps-
figure it out.
And you got to
Yeah.
figure it out. And I love puzzles, and I love escape rooms, and I love anything
Love
that
an escape
Yeah,
room.
I love anything that's got me thinking, what is going on here, and why can't I figure it out?
Mate, do you know what you should watch? I admittedly watch it to go to sleep if I'm ever feeling stressed or like overstimulated. I watch this guy called Chris Ramsey.
Okay.
He's like a YouTube guy. He's a magician, but I just watch him solve puzzles. He like buys these Japanese like handcrafted puzzle boxes.
Wow.
And he just solves them. And I've started buying them, and they come to the house and you sit down for 4 hours, put it down, pick it up and try and solve this puzzle. And it's amazing.
Are you any good at them?
No, I'm terrible at them, mate. I'm absolutely terrible. I've had an unsolved Rubik's Cube since I was like 11. But yeah, so I watch his videos because there's just something about like the sound of the wood. I'm a carpenter, so I love like craftsmanship and that sort of stuff. So I love the way that these pieces are put together. So watching him solve the puzzles, I find so relaxing.
Yeah. I think for so many of us, you know, getting bad reviews, perceptions, people talking about us, whatever that may be, whatever scale we live at, can actually affect us.
Sure.
And you saying that actually seeing your dad, seeing him shrug it off and seeing him move on actually really helped him. Do you think that you've been able to create a bit more of a skill around that now, or is it something that happens naturally for you? Because I'm guessing that there's a lot of people who are listening and watching going, Tom, that's pretty amazing that you can do that at your scale and your level. But, you know, I'm still affected by that. Or I really struggle when my mate says something. Like, I know the number one thing I hear is like, most people don't chase their dreams because they're scared of what their mates will say, let alone what the world will say.
What the world will say.
Yeah, like I had this late, I was flying back last night, as I was telling you. So I was on a plane from DC to London last night. And the air hostess, she was wonderful. Her name was Jeanette. She said to me, she was like, Jay, I really want to start a YouTube channel, but you know, you just got to block out what your friends are going to say, right? And she was just worried about it. So that it's a very real thing. So I guess, have you kind of figured out a little formula for it? Or is it just natural because you saw your dad and it's become easier that way?
I think it's a little bit of both, really. You know, I think it's something you definitely get better at. I'm really lucky that I have an incredibly strong group of friends. Like one of my best mates just called me up earlier to say he'd seen the 5th episode, and he's like, I know what happens in the show and I'm still loving it. The people I'm watching it with have no idea what's going on, but they can't wait for the next one.
Yeah.
So, you know, I really, really hold high the opinions of people that I really care about. I'm also really lucky to have an amazing group of fans who are so supportive. They are diehard. They are there day one. And that makes me feel really good. But I do think a lot of my lessons in life have come from my dad and the ways that he can deal with things that he hasn't done very well in the past, that he's passed on to me. And I live by this really... I don't actually know if Christian Bale did say this, but I think he did.
Bale,
I love Christian Bale.
He said
I
it.
absolutely
Yeah,
love Christian Bale.
Say he said it, yeah.
But I think the quote is, if you have a problem with me, text me. And if you don't have my number, you don't know me well enough to have a problem with me.
That is so good.
And I think that is such a great piece of advice, because as a celebrity, you live on this stage, you live out there, you kind of give out a version of yourself that you want people to see.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be the version of yourself that they can have a problem with or they can love. And there is I feel like I'm quite authentic in my public persona, but I just try to really care about what my family thinks, what my friends think, what the people in my local community think. I live in Kingston. I know everyone that lives there. I can't walk 5 feet without bumping into one of my mum's friends. So yeah, so it's something I've been working on. I try my best to not let that stuff affect me. It does.
Yeah, of course.
I'm not cold-hearted or anything like that. It does affect me, but I just try to move on and focus on the positives.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. What was did you ever see your dad deal with everything and you thought, wow, that was incredible? Like, was there anything specific that you remember that, like, seeing him like tackle something and you thought, wow, that really impressed me, even if it was something really small in hindsight?
I think the thing I admire most about my dad is his resilience. You know, he's someone who has had an incredibly successful career in his earlier life, and then later in life, his career sort of plateaued and he struggled, and he's never stopped. He's never given up. He's still gigging to this day. He's still writing books. He has a Patreon. He has a podcast. He's constantly grafting to get to where he wants to be. And I think being a young kid and seeing your dad continually working as hard as he can to kind of put his best foot forward, for me, has been a huge drive for my work ethic. I'll give it 100% or I'll give it nothing. And I think a lot of that has come from my dad and seeing him deal with that. The funny thing about my dad is, you talk about doing a bad gig. I must have seen him 20 times. I've never seen him do a bad gig. He always seems to absolutely rip it. But maybe that's just because we're in the audience. But no, I owe a lot to my dad, and a lot of the teachings are things he's told me and things I've just witnessed him do.
Yeah. And was there ever a piece of feedback or a rumor or something you saw that did affect you, where you actually thought, well, or at least made you stop and go, God, I'm trying to see the positives, but this one's tough. Like this actually made me have to pause and figure it out?
Something that did really upset me I was in New York. I was shooting the crowded room, and I was having a really hard time with the job just because of how taxing it was, the emotional capacity that I was having to get to every day. And I decided to delete my Instagram because I just felt like I was so addicted to this kind of false version of my life that it was just taking over. I would be on set working, I'd come and sit in my chair and just scroll. And it was becoming a problem. I was just obsessed with it, and I was obsessed to find out what people were saying and what they thought about me. So I decided to make an announcement, which unfortunately we have to do, and say that I'm taking a break from social media. And I tried to position myself and say, like, I'm taking a break from social media because I feel like my mental health will benefit from it. And the thing that really upset me is the press ran with that, and they tried to make out that I was having this mental breakdown. And what upset me was, if I was having a mental breakdown, that's not for you to report on. They took the story in the wrong direction, and they painted again this negative light on mental health, rather than saying, oh, he's doing it. It's okay that he's doing it, so we should all feel okay to do it too. They were saying, oh, look, he's not the perfect happy-go-lucky kid you think he is. He's having a nervous breakdown in New York. And I think that that was a really unfair line of journalism, let's say, because I just think it again kind of painted people looking for help in the wrong light, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. It almost sounds like you were actually preemptively going, I'm doing this so that I don't
Right.
go in that direction. And
Totally.
so, at least I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but it's
Absolutely.
Like, it's almost like I'm proactively seeing that I
look
could
at
end
that,
up in a position where
Sure.
I might have a breakdown.
Yeah,
I don't want to
ditto.
be in that position. And
Säkert
so
är det
I'm
med.
responsibly saying, guys, I'm taking a break
Right.
in order to protect myself.
100%.
Yeah, which makes a lot of sense and actually is quite admirable again.
Totally. And that's kind of what the message of the show is about. Like the message of our show is that asking for help should be something that we celebrate.
Yeah.
If you're struggling, if you need help, if you feel bad and you wake up and you go to a friend, a therapist, a teacher, an employee or a colleague and say, I'm really struggling, I need some help, that should be something that we give you a pat on the back. Like, I would love to help you. I'm delighted that you asked me. And that, for me, that announcement was kind of my olive branch, and the press ran with it how they ran with it. But to be fair, it kind of gave me a great drive to finish The Crowded Room in the way that we did. To, like, if you're not going to listen to my personal message, then you have to listen to the message of my show.
Yeah.
So it kind of went hand in hand.
Yeah, absolutely. You've reminded me actually when you said that, because I think we naturally today think of therapists or doctors, but you mentioned teacher there, and I was thinking, when I was going through a really rough time at school once, I remember my walk to school from the bus stop, I'd see a teacher every day that I was really close with at school, but you never talk to your teachers.
Nah.
Walking to school,
Not a crazy person.
Yeah, but I was so lonely at the time that I remember like almost thinking like, well, he's the only person I can talk to because of other stuff that I was going through at school. And I remember I started talking to him on the way to school. His name's Mr. Buckeridge. He knows I go on about him everywhere, and he avoids it because everyone's always like, "Oh, Jay's been talking about you. Yeah, Jay's been talking about you." But it was that exact feeling where it was like he was someone that I felt I could open up to at that point in my life without feeling judged, without feeling like he was going to see me through another lens, and just having that space to be seen for as a human who was going through stuff by a teacher was a huge win. And so, you know, you are right that help can come in all different forms, and it doesn't have to come in the ways that we expect it to come in.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a professional.
Yeah.
I go to my friends a lot, and you know, some friends are better than others in certain situations. I've got some friends that are very much like pull your socks up and get on with it, and then other friends who are like, come here and have a cry on my shoulder. But like it varies. So I just really hope that that's what the show can do is sort of paint this positive picture of asking for help is something to be proud of.
Well, that's a great message, and I think we all need to hear it. And I want to go back a little bit because there's a lot of interviews that you've done, and I've watched a lot of stuff over the time. But like we were talking about, a lot of it's sound bites because it's quick and short, and like these entertainment, interviews. And that's why I was really grateful that you took out the time to do this. But you were diagnosed, as far as I read, with dyslexia at age 7.
Yes.
And I was wondering how, a lot of our community and our audience is diagnosed as well, or some of them are not, but they're finding out later on in life. How did that affect you, or how were you set up for success with that because as an actor, you've got to learn lines, you've got to read lines. There's a lot of activities that people would assume are quite challenging.
Sure.
But you found a way, and walk us through that a little bit.
I don't know. My mum has always been really hands-on with our education.
Mm-hmm.
She, really wanted us to just do our best. Our dad always said, like, look, I don't care what grades you get. As long as you try your best, and that's all that we can ask for.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, my dyslexia, it's really just my spelling. I mean,
You know
honestly,
It's just that, yeah.
those sort of games that you play at Christmas. Have you ever played the one where you have to write down the answers? It's such a good game.
Is it Boulder Dash? I don't know Boulder Dash. Is it
It's basically a game where someone will read out a scenario or
right?
ask a question, and then you have to answer the question to the best of your ability. But you can also bluff and lie.
Oh, I've never played this
and
game.
if you
Okay.
write somewhat a believing answer and people vote for your answer, you win,
Oh, cool. Okay, I've never played it.
which is great.
Yeah.
But when I play it, everyone's like, what does that say? That is definitely not spelt right.
Good.
But yeah, so my spelling was really the biggest hurdle.
Yeah.
I worked really hard at school. I didn't
Yeah.
do particularly well, but again, my parents said, as long as you try your best, then that's all
Yeah.
we can ask for.
Yeah, and acting you started early too, age 9, right? Like that was something that you started pursuing really early on in life. And I feel, was that something that you were always sure about? There's that famous viral TikTok that always goes around of you. I don't know how old you were, being asked, what superhero would you play
Oh, right.
when you're
yeah,
older?
yeah,
And you say,
yeah.
oh, maybe Spider-Man, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, and I wonder like how much of your acting career do you feel like you've manifested, or there was a vision or a focus, or is it more just like this was naturally what you were into and
Sure.
it grew? Where did that come from?
I do believe in manifesting, actually. I really do. I think what's interesting about my career is this was never something I wanted. I just was a young kid. I loved dancing. My mum would take me to a dance class every Saturday. And I got spotted through that dance class to audition for a show on the West End. I ended up doing the show.
Billy
I loved
Elliot.
it. Billy Elliot. It was the time
Love
of
that
my
show.
life. It was such a cool experience. Just by complete fluke, an agent came to see the show the night that I was on. She signed me. She sent me to an audition for a film. I was lucky enough to get the part. All of a sudden, I was on set with Ewan McGregor and Naomi Watts, and we made The Impossible. And to be perfectly honest with you, it was just a hobby. It was something that my mum would let me do on the summer holidays. She was very keen that I kept my schooling up. And there sort of came that time in England where you're in between GCSEs and A-levels, and you're trying to figure out. When I was going through that, you could still drop out at A-levels. Obviously, now you have to do A-levels. And I had that moment where I was like, what do I want to do? I could try and stay at school and figure out what I want to do, or this thing that's been a hobby, but my sort of summer holiday activity, which is acting, I could try and do that for a living. And I've been so lucky that I've been, offered jobs and all that sort of stuff. I decided to go with it. I joined the Brit School because, my mum was keen that I didn't go for school for an education, but went to school to expand my social skills and meet kids my own age. All my friends when I was 15 were like 30-year-old people because they're all adults from the business. So I think my mum was keen that I had some friends that are my age who are now my best friends today. So I never really wanted this. I just sort of never stopped doing it. And I love it. I absolutely love it. I love the creativity. I love the building blocks that are required to put a film together. I love the collaboration on set between people from all different walks of life. A film set is a melting pot of all sorts of different people. So I love it. I absolutely love it.
Yeah. Wow. And I read something that you said you were bullied for like doing ballet
Yeah, right.
early, which obviously got you into playing the role of Billy Elliot, because it's ballet and tap, right?
Sure.
It's both. So was that tough at the time, or like were you trying to hide it and then you end up at the West End and you're on the main stage and everyone's seeing it, or was it kind of easy to navigate, and how did that go down? Because I feel like as a kid doing ballet and tap must have been a little challenging.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't easy, but it also wasn't tough.
Right.
I went to a rugby school, so you can imagine like the one kid in the school that does ballet. There's going to be comments here and there. It wasn't the easiest thing in the world. There were kids that didn't understand why I was doing it or what I was doing it for. No matter how many times I explained, like, I'm the only guy in a class of 30 girls in tights. I was like, guys, this is what you want to be doing. Like, rugby is not it. But it was tough. But again, like, it goes back to what we were saying about resilience and keeping your head down. And Crowded Room was the hardest job I've ever had for all sorts of different reasons. And there was a point in time where we were talking about, do we shut this down and walk away from it because of how challenging it was? And, I dug my heels in, I put my head down and was like, no, I'm going to finish this. I'm going to see it through. And I think, you know, you learn from past experiences like that. So I really am proud of the way everyone handled the crowded room. And I think that stems from my childhood, my dad's experiences, and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Well, so I've got a confession as well to make.
Go on.
So I went to rugby school as well.
Okay.
And
Did you play?
I played. Yeah, I played for my A team, and I was pretty.
Oh,
good.
you were in the
I was
A
pretty
team?
good. I was pretty good.
Okay. What
Because
position did you play?
Blindside flanker.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. So I was really into rugby because I went to rugby school, and I loved football, but my school
Right.
didn't play football, and so I was like, no, I've got to be on the school's main team.
Sure,
whoever
sure,
it was.
sure.
So I worked really hard to get on the team. But after we played rugby on a Saturday, my mum forced me to go to dance class. And part of it was ballet and tap as well.
Really?
Although I did not end up at the West End and play
Right,
Billy
right,
Elliot
right.
because I don't think Billy Elliot was brown. So
Wow.
that wasn't going to happen.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it wasn't the same path as you.
Oh,
But
mate.
I also had that experience. That's why I had to ask you about it.
Did you enjoy it?
I really enjoyed it for the community aspect of it. Like I love all the lads that I was there with, and
Sure.
they were just a great laugh. And it was
Yeah.
really interesting because I'd literally go from playing rugby straight to class on a Saturday, and
Love
I'd go
it.
in there with all my bruises, exhausted, and
Yeah,
all the
yeah,
rest
yeah.
of it. But everyone's just so much fun.
Sure.
And it's almost like the rugby pitch was more stressful because everyone was
100%.
like, you know, trying to be intense and trying to be this and that. Whereas everyone was just having a laugh at the dance class. And we
Totally.
do everything from hip hop to street to
Love it.
whatever. But yeah, I remember never telling. I think this is the first time I've ever spoken about it.
It's out there.
Because I'm in a safe space with you. So I'm like,
But it's interesting because rugby's regimented, isn't it?
yeah, I love rugby by the
you
way.
Play
I love rugby.
you play a position that is as specific as saying the blind side flanker. You know, when you're a dancer, you're just a dancer. You know,
Yeah.
you can fit in however you want to fit in.
Yeah.
The teacher can ask you, how are you feeling about that? Rather than like, you need to get your head down to the left to make a proper tackle. I did love playing rugby when I was smaller.
Yeah.
Not when I was smaller, when all the kids were smaller. And then there was that time where I came back to school after Billy Elliot and everyone had just become a man and I was still very much a child.
Yeah.
I remember we played this school called Trinity College and it was my first game back and I was playing scrum half. I came on the second half and it was a violent game. It was not a gentleman's game of rugby. And I was standing, they were kicking to us, we were receiving. And I remember thinking, as long as the ball doesn't come to me off of the kick, I'll be fine. I need the game to get going and then I'll be fine. I'm scrum half, relatively safe
Yeah.
position, I'm a good playmaker. As soon as he kicked the ball, it's coming straight towards me. I'm trying to catch it. I can hear the boots running towards me. I fumble it, knock on. The game goes on. I start playing well. I assisted a try. And then I don't remember what happened or how it happened. But there was a really tough kid on our team who will remain nameless. I haven't spoken to him since. I don't know what he's doing. But he got into a fight with some kid on the opposing team. And it was really quite ugly. And then the kid's dad came on the pitch to tell off this boy that was on my team. And the kid on my team knocked out his dad.
No.
Like proper. Like it's the first time I've ever seen someone hit someone. And I couldn't believe that a kid who was,
How old are you? Yeah.
he must have been 16 at the time, but he's one of those 16-year-olds that would look older than I do now when he was 16. And I just remember hearing the noise. He like cracked this dad on the jaw, hit the floor. Then this whole big fight broke out. I'm not a fighter. I stepped away and was sort of like, what's going on? Yeah, it was wild. And that was the last game of rugby I ever played. It was against Trinity College.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it was really intense.
Wow,
Yeah, it was
that
not
is
good.
intense. Yeah, that's how intense it got. My last game was similar, but not watching a fight. So someone ran. It was a big game, and it was
Right.
like I was playing really well that season, and everything was going really well. And someone ran into a rock, but with their elbow, which is obviously
Yeah,
illegal.
totally.
They ran in and they elbowed me right there, like right below. It's on this side and right below
失業が
there.
先
And
に
the
引かれ
next
てる
thing I
のか。
know, I get up
なるほど。
and I'm like kind of feeling a bit aggressive.
Are you cut as well?
Well, I didn't notice, and then blood starts to drip, and I was like, "That's when you freak out because you're like,
Mm.
oh god, I'm like, I can," and there's a lot of blood just dripping. So I get subbed off, and the nurse on the side just puts a bit of glue there, like to stick it together.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, you don't really notice, and you think you're all right, and then literally an hour later, it's just getting thicker and thicker and thicker. And I'm ending up with this run to the hospital on the way home because my coach was just like, "Suck it up, it's fine.
You'll be fine.
Run
yeah.
there." They're like, if you were any later, you would have had nerve damage and like potentially lost your eyesight, whatever it was. And they had to like glue it and a little bit of stitches or whatever it was. And I, for the rest of the month, I walked around with my, like, you know, eye literally hanging over. And I looked like I'd got into like the worst fight. Like Like I walked into a store and everyone would kind of back off and stuff, and it was just really uncomfortable. That was my last game of rugby. That's why I just remembered that. But yeah, it was
That's
it was
savage.
intense, but it was great. Like you said, it was great regimented discipline training. I loved training with my mates. I loved playing. I loved, as a young man as well, like having a outlet to release the energy that I had.
Totally.
I felt was
Release.
good in obviously in a way that wasn't trying to hurt others.
But that's what's so great about boxing.
Yeah.
It's like boxing is such a great release. You know, you see these young kids who are angry, who need to let something go, like go and punch a bag for an hour. Like that will calm you down.
Yeah.
I love how boxing is such a great thing for young people to release that sort of energy.
Are you boxing? Do you box?
I love boxing.
Yeah.
It's been a few years since I've done any sort of training. I used to go to this great gym in New York called Church Street Boxing.
Mhm.
Used to love it there. Had a great pro. You could sort of spar with him because you know that he wouldn't batter you because he could control himself. I went to one sparring session,
are-
just
You're
a
there
general session, and I got absolutely battered. Yeah, it was tough, but I love it. I love the sport. I'm a little bit sad as to like how the sport is being run right now.
Right.
But I do love the sport and I admire the athletes. I think
Yeah.
they're amazing.
What's your take on YouTubers, boxing, and all that kind of stuff? And because it's obviously bringing a lot of attention to the sport.
To be perfectly honest with you, mate, I don't really mind it. I
Yeah.
think it's quite fun. I think if you're doing it for the right reasons, you know, there's a great opportunity to raise some money for amazing charities. And I
Yeah.
think a few of them have done a lot for charity. I think it's really great. I think, yeah, you know, my brother Paddy would never have been watching boxing and now
Yeah,
he loves
I'd
it
probably
because
watch
of
more
his
boxing 'cause of
favourite
it.
YouTubers at boxing. So
Yeah.
if it's good for the sport, it's good for the sport. I sort of don't really mind.
yeah.
I think it's funny, to be honest. Yeah, because you sit at home watching it, you're like, I could do that. I could
Yeah.
get in there and do that. And you're like, well, why don't you? And you're like, well,
Yeah.
I don't really want to do that.
So we might see you in Creed 4 then.
Yeah, yeah,
That's,
absolutely.
yeah, we'll do the acting boxing.
I'd love to do a boxing movie.
Yeah.
I think it would be cool to do a boxing movie, but where the fighting is real. Like,
Walk me through that.
I wouldn't necessarily be in that film, right? But I do think that you could make a really interesting film where the outcome of the film is determined on the outcome of the real fight.
Has anything like that ever been done? Like racing or any can you, I'm just trying to,
Not that I know of.
yeah, not that I
no.
know of. That's what I'm trying to think.
It could be really cool.
Yeah,
I mean,
wow.
But yeah, I love boxing movies. I'm a
Yeah.
sucker for it.
Yeah, yeah. Which
yeah.
one's your favorite?
I think Rocky 2 is probably my favorite.
Yeah,
I remember
biggest
when we were
star.
in Billy Elliot, we had this room called the Billy Room, and there was always a Billy backstage while the show was going on because the show was so labor intensive. It was very dangerous. There's lots of moving parts. There's lots of acrobatics. It wasn't too uncommon for a Billy to get injured, and then there would be someone upstairs who would replace that Billy. And we would just hang out upstairs, and there was an Xbox and a television and all that sort of stuff. And one of the DVDs that we had, the two DVDs we had was Step Up to the Streets, my favorite film of all time, and Rocky 2. And I must have seen that film 40 times. I
How
love
many
that
times
film.
did you practice the dance in the mirror?
Oh, mate, I've got the whole dance down, bro.
Can we see it?
No. Yeah, no, I love that
Yeah.
film. I absolutely love that film.
Yeah, I'd say my favorite. So Rocky was my favorite because I'd watch it with my dad.
Sure.
And Rocky, I struggle between Rocky 3 and Rocky 4 because I loved Mr. T. And
That's 4,
3.
right?
That's 3.
That's 3.
And I loved Ivan Drago as well, which was 4. And they were both just such great movies.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It was just, yeah, it's such great entertainment, even though it's nothing like real boxing.
Yeah, nothing at
But yeah,
all. Nothing at
like
all.
real boxing. But then I remember watching real boxing when I was growing up. It was Prince Nassim.
Oh, man,
So
I
I
love
didn't,
him.
yeah, my dad was a big fan of his, so I'd remember watching him a lot.
I
when
love his style. There's a
Yeah.
video of him working with I guess it's like a swinging bag, and he is so effortless. Because Canelo's got a great head movement, but he looks like he's thinking about it.
Yeah.
Whereas Nazim is just living the dream. Just he's so fluid, and I love the way he used to move.
Yeah, yeah.
And I love how he would enter the ring. Me, I would over-rotate and slam on my face or something. Yeah, he was brilliant.
Yeah, it was like
amazing.
wrestling meets boxing.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
it
yeah.
had that- it had that
He must have been a
entertain-
nightmare to fight.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
must have been like, he's beating me and he's embarrassing me. This is
Yeah.
really tough.
terrible.
What do you think of Lemachenko? Did you see his last fight?
I haven't. No, I didn't see it.
That's an interesting one.
Go on, tell me. I didn't see it at all.
Well, I think the general consensus is that he won,
Oh,
but it was given the other way.
right.
He
right,
is
right.
my favorite boxer
Right.
because of his history, his background in dance. He was like, I guess, a really talented boxer. And then I don't know if this is true, but his dad sent him to go and study dance for sort of 5 years or something like that
For his boxing.
for
training.
his boxing,
Yeah.
which is why his footwork is like on another planet.
Wow.
There's loads of examples of where he's fighting people and they look up and he's just gone. He's behind
Wow.
them. So I really admire him. But his most recent fight, he lost.
How did it go against him? Was it a vote?
It was a
Like,
vote, yeah.
Right.
They went against him. So I wonder whether they'll fight again.
Yeah, I guess they'll have to if there's. It seems like this isn't a conspiracy theory.
But that's
from
the
you.
problem with boxing, though. Like, will they fight again?
Yeah,
you know, because it's a tricky business. Unlike the UFC, where if they want to fight, they'll fight. That's what I love about it. I took my brother and my cousin to the UFC the other night, and that is such a savage sport.
It is.
That is. Yeah, it's terrifying.
We really don't want that to be a movie and a real one.
Have you seen The Warrior?
I was just
Is that what you're going to talk about? Mate, that movie's so good.
The Warrior is one of the most underrated movies.
That movie's
so
excellent.
good. Yeah,
it's a little ridiculous, the idea that they have like 6 fights a night getting ready for one final. But I do love that film.
Yeah. It's a really good
brilliant.
movie. It's a really good movie. Oh, well, okay, all right. So we know there's a boxing movie coming somewhere down the line.
Yeah, there's got to be one down the line.
There's got to be one down the line.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and we want to see you work your way up. And we might see you actually go do it for real. Sounds like
imagine. For charity, maybe.
One of the things that you mentioned recently was that you gave up drinking about 1.5 years ago.
Yes.
And you said it was the hardest thing you ever did.
Yes.
And I wanted to know what was so hard about it for you. Why was it so hard?
It's interesting. I didn't one day wake up and say, I'm giving up drinking. I just, like many Brits, had a very, very boozy December. Christmas time, I was on vacation. I was drinking a lot, and I've always been able to drink a lot. I think I get my genes from my mum's side in that thing. Like I can drink, and I decided to just give up for January. I just wanted to do dry January, and all I could think about was having a drink. It's all I could think about. I was waking up thinking about it. I was checking the clock. When's it 12? And it just really scared me. I just was like, wow, maybe I have a little bit of an alcohol thing. So I sort of decided to punish myself and say, I'll do February as well. I'll do 2 months off. If I can do 2 months off, then I can prove to myself that I don't have a problem. 2 months go by, and I was still really struggling. I felt like I couldn't be social. I felt like I couldn't go to the pub and have a lime soda. I couldn't go out for dinner. I was really, really struggling. And I started to really worry that maybe I had an alcohol problem. So I decided that I would wait until my birthday, which is June 1st. I said to myself, if I can do 6 months without alcohol, then I can prove to myself that I don't have a problem. And by the time I had got to June 1st, I was the happiest I've ever been in my life. I could sleep better. I could handle problems better. Things that would go wrong on set that would normally set me off, I could take in my stride. I had such better mental clarity. I felt healthier. I felt fitter. And I just sort of said to myself, like, why am I enslaved to this drink? Why am I so obsessed by the idea of having this drink? And I would look back and recognize that I would go to events for work and be like, I can't enjoy myself until I've had a few beers. And I just felt so much pressure. And this is one of the things why I've sort of distanced myself from the rugby community, because so much of it is about how much can you drink? Let's get you as drunk as possible. And it's honestly been the best thing I've ever done. I'm 1.5 years into it now. It doesn't even cross my mind. I've found amazing replacements that I think are fantastic. Ones that are also really healthy. I found this one beer that it's full of electrolytes and it's, the carbohydrates in it are long-lasting energy. So like having a beer is now actually like a really healthy thing. I'm really lucky that all my friends are super supportive about it. I've never run into that scenario where my friends are like, oh, go on, just have a beer. Like, you're fine. They've always sort of really supported me. And I don't want to be that person that's saying to people, you should get sober, you should get sober. If I could encourage someone to drink less, then that's great. But I don't want to start getting into the world of, you need to stop drinking, because it's not for me to say. I went on my own little journey. I'm really enjoying it. I'm delighted that my mum's has also given up. She's loving it. And it's been amazing. I can't believe the difference that I feel from not drinking. Yeah. I feel amazing.
That's amazing, man. I love hearing that. And I love hearing that it's been great for you, right? I think that's the point. Not everything has to be like, look what I did, you can do it too. It's kind of like, no, this is just what's been great for me. Do you think it was partly that attitude, for you at least, in the beginning, where it's like, well, look, I can drink. I drink a lot. It comes from my mum genes and it doesn't affect me. And then all of a sudden you realize, well, wait a minute, it's more than that. Because I think there is that. Like, I was like that as a young man as well. Like, for me, it was easy to drink. I didn't drink daily. For me, I drank a lot more socially. Sure. And I loved playing drinking games with my mates. And that was really what I enjoyed the most, probably. And for me, when I quit, I could just quickly see how it just got me into doing things I would never do if I wasn't drunk. So
Sure.
for me, it was more that. But yeah, I wonder for you, did you find that there's a really fine line between like, oh, I know I can drink a lot, and then all of a sudden you're kind of not addicted beyond that.
No, addicted, mate.
Yeah.
Like, I'm happy to say, like, I
Yeah.
was definitely addicted to alcohol. Not shying away from that at all. I think anyone that wakes up and anyone that has a beer every day is probably got a little bit of a problem. But yeah, you're right. I would drink and drink and drink and drink, and then you would just reach that moment where you're like, wow, I shouldn't have had that last beer. And you
Yeah.
wake up the next day and you have a terrible headache and you're suffering. I bought one of those rings that will tell you about your sleep.
Yeah, Oura Ring.
Yeah, and it was
Yeah,
amazing
love
because I
those,
couldn't sleep. I was like, why can't I sleep? I'm working 14 hours a day. I'm doing 2 hours in the gym. I'm eating really healthily and I can't sleep. What's wrong with me? I bought this ring and it was booze. It was completely affecting my sleep. And since I've given it up, I can sleep anywhere, you know? It's also interesting as well, going on nights out and having a great time as the sober person, and then getting to that point in the night where people start, you know, spitting in your ear and everyone's like, I love you, man. I love you so much. And you're like, yeah, brilliant. I love you too. I'll see you tomorrow. I'm going to bed. Like, I love being that person now.
Yeah.
I love seeing my friends on the golf course at 8 a.m. in the morning, feeling fresh and ready to go.
Yeah.
And they're sort of crawling out their car. And so, yeah. So I'm over the moon to
Yeah.
be sober. I love it.
Yeah. For anyone who is listening right now and is going, Tom, I love that for you. I want to do it too. Like they're listening going, I'm having too much every day. I can notice some of those things, but I'm just stuck. And it's hard because we know that addiction's that way. We know that this is heavy. It's not easy. But if someone is watching going, Tom, tell me, like, what did you do to even get started? How did you have that courage to say, I'm going to do January, I'm going to stick at it? Were there any moments where you actually fell back and then had to get back on the horse again? Like, just walk us through that a little bit more for anyone who is watching going, Tom, mate, I want to be in your position in like 6 months.
I didn't fall back on it. I have done in the past. Like, I've had periods of my life where I'd given up drinking and then gone back to drinking. But this time, I don't know. It was just different. I really worked to sort of change my mindset. I really asked myself, like, why do you drink? Why are you drinking? And a lot of the time, my answer would be to feel more comfortable in the social environment.
Yeah.
And I just put myself in those environments and just would force myself to be there. I'd force myself to hang out and go to a club or go to a bar, go to a dinner.
Yeah,
And
so you weren't avoiding those places.
I was at the beginning because I didn't feel like I could go and not have a drink because of the stress of it. But then after a while, I sort of was like, mate, you've got to pull your socks up here and you can't just live in your house all the time. You've got to go out and enjoy yourself. And if you're only enjoying yourself because you're drinking, then you really do have a problem. But I just changed my mindset. I found really good replacements, things that I could sort of attribute to having a beer. I often found with me, most of it is just the ritual of cracking something open and sharing it with friends and drinking it. Whether it's sparkling water or a beer, I don't associate, like, I don't see a difference.
Yeah.
But I think it's different for everyone.
Yeah.
I had a great support system. Jack is one of my best mates and we travel all over the world. He doesn't drink, and doing it with him was a really helpful experience for me. My brother is always on the road with me. He was very supportive. And yeah, I just really set my mind to
Yeah.
it. I was like, I really want to do this. I want to prove to myself I can do it.
Yeah.
And then once I'd felt the health benefits and started really feeling like my full self, I
Yeah.
was like, oh my God, this is the best. But do you not drink?
I haven't drank for 17 years.
No way.
Yeah, and I feel
Congratulations. That's
amazing. Yeah,
amazing.
I feel amazing. Yeah, it's incredible.
Wow.
It's like one of the best feelings in the world. And it's my biggest like worry when I was about to quit was like, how am I going to hang out with my mates?
That
Like,
was my biggest worry, yeah.
I was like, my mates knew me as the guy who was like first to the game, last
Sure.
to get out. Like,
That was me, bro.
you know, the clown when I got drunk, like
Yeah.
life of the party, kind of like that kind of guy. And then all of a sudden I decided I wasn't going to drink anymore. I was like, crap, how am I going to fit in? And then I remember I went into the corporate world for a bit and I didn't drink. And I was like, God, am I going to miss out on like opportunities and
Sure.
networking? Like, you know, all the guys afterwards are like going to get drinks. And I'm like, I'll come, but I'll have a water or I'll have a soda, whatever it is.
Sure.
And what was really interesting for me is not relying on drinking made me rely on qualities and skills I had
Sure.
that were actually better.
Yeah.
So now that I couldn't drink as an excuse to hang with the lads, I was bringing out parts of my personality that I probably would have just hidden away or
Suppressed.
ignored. Yeah,
Totally.
suppressed. And all of a sudden, you were actually getting respected and liked for who you were,
Right.
rather than the person who you were when you were drunk.
Sure.
And actually, that worked in the workplace. And there was no one at the workplace going, "Oh, Jay doesn't drink, so he's not getting promoted."
Right.
It wasn't like that. People were like, "Oh yeah, I really like hanging out with Jay," or "He's a really good guy," or whatever it may be. And I was still getting the same opportunities and I was still
Yeah.
getting promoted at work and whatever it was. And I think that's what I'd like to remind people, that don't feel like your career or your work is going to suffer. Even for you, like I'm sure as a, you know, with your career path, you have to be at parties, you have to be at events.
Of course.
And the fact that you're able to do that now without having alcohol, and it doesn't sound like it's negatively impacting your career. If anything, it's the opposite.
Mate, I honestly cannot believe like the amount of times I've sat down with an actor that I've really admired, or sat down with a producer or a director and been like, oh, you know, well, I don't drink anymore. And they go, oh, I don't drink, 10 years. And you're like, oh my God. And I've had so many insightful conversations with people like yourself where you've heard their story, their reason for giving up. And there is a wonderful community of people. And I love it. I love being a part of that community. I'm really proud to be a part of it. I hope that, you know, I can meet other people and chat to them about it, because it's really nice. It's lovely to be like, let's go get a lime soda together, you know?
Yeah, let's get a juice. Let's get a smoothie.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it is true. It's true. And it's really interesting because I can't remember. I'm trying to remember. There was this blog that came out years ago. I can't even remember it now. And there was this girl on Instagram who was getting a lot of likes and a lot of comments and a lot of attention. And one day she just disappeared. Like, she stopped posting. And everyone's just like, all the comments were like, where are you? What happened? Are you okay? Like, what happened to you? You know, everyone was frantic trying to figure out what happened to her, because they loved her, they were following her and all the rest of it. And what they didn't know is that it was built by a team that was trying to show that what people didn't notice is that in every picture she posted, she was drinking. And it was it was almost like original AI that was made up to prove the point that you can love someone and you can think you're really close to them and you can think their lifestyle looks amazing, but actually they've got a drink in every picture they post, and you didn't realize they had an alcohol problem. So there was no real person who died. But the point was that your friends could be struggling even when they're posting these beautiful lifestyle pictures. But are you aware?
Wow.
And are you conscious of how much it affects you? And I can't remember who built that page.
Well, I think that's one of the problems with alcohol, is that if you came out with alcohol right now, if alcohol wasn't a thing and you like, I've invented this drink that is going to make you like either really happy or really aggressive or really stupid, and we're going to just sell it to the masses, people would be like, nah, mate, keep your funky juice. Like, we don't want that. That's terrible. And it's one of those things, because it's so socially acceptable, the addiction side of it, the bad sides of it really do fly under the radar.
Yeah.
And that's really interesting. I'll tell you something I do love about being a non-drinker. I love being a designated driver.
Yeah.
I love being that person that makes sure that everyone gets home. I don't know. I like being a dependable person. I think I'm quite dependable, and I really like that thing. And I saw this crazy YouTube video once. This was years ago, of a guy that went to a bar, he got drunk, and he drove home, and he crashed his car. And I don't know if this is real, it could have been fake, but it's really impactful. Basically, what his friend had done was set up the room as if he had been in a coma for like 10 years. And his friend wakes up hours after the crash, and his friend is there, and he had all like old makeup on to make him look older. And now I'm thinking about it, there's no way this could have been real, because how would they have been able to pull that off? But he basically is saying to him, like, you've been asleep for 10 years. Everyone's missed you. Like, we can't believe you're awake. This is amazing. And it shows like how a stupid decision like driving drunk can affect the future of your life. So I do love being a designated driver. That is something I enjoy. Seeing my friends have a good time and being like, don't worry, Tom will take you home.
Yeah. I used to love being the designated driver until I realized that an ex-girlfriend just had me do that because I was the one who didn't drink. So that wasn't a fun designated driver job. But I've always been that guy since. Because I lived as a monk for 3 years.
Yeah, amazing.
And when I came back after that, obviously I never went back to drinking alcohol and everything. And so, but I went back into the workplace, and I remember everyone would always open up to me and give me advice. But it's what you're saying. When someone was drunk, they'd tell me their whole life story.
Yeah.
Next day they'd wake up and go, Jay, you'd actually remember what I said. I remember everything. They're like, please don't tell anyone.
Yeah.
You know, and I loved that part where I was like, I was able to be there for people.
Totally.
Just hear their stories.
100%.
And someone that had context the next day, because if they told someone else who was drunk, you'd both not remember, and then it'd be gone. No, I think the benefits that you've just pointed out of good sleep, good health, great mental clarity, they're huge. But there's a couple of things I want to point out for everyone who's listening, just as takeaways, because Tom makes
こう
it
抜けたらクソでか
so
い
seamless when you're talking about it. It's
三
really
尊木がある
beautiful as well. But one of the things you
映画
mentioned
が
was
ちょっと
finding
って考
alternatives.
える
And during my
プラン
monk
な
life,
の
we always talked about how there was something that we called the higher taste. And it was saying you can never give up a lower taste unless you had a higher taste.
Sure.
And so there has to be a switch. There has to be a
Has
replacement.
to be a replacement,
And so the fact that
100%.
you found alternatives, I think that's half the battle.
Sure.
Because most of us are trying to take something out of our lives and then you're just trying to fill it.
Yeah.
And then you have to go
Right.
back to what you had
Right.
before because you're not finding a
まあ
replacement. So
映画
that was
や
beautiful. And the
映
second
画
thing you
も
said, which I
ダブル
loved,
ご
which
とに
was
決まりそう
having
な
this
ので
conversation and dialogue with other
あ
people, someone who's 1 year
でき
ahead
る
of
んじゃない
you,
か
someone who's 10 years ahead, someone who's
Sure.
20 years ahead, who's gone through that process and they're open and honest and vulnerable about, well, you know what, I did have a weak moment, or you know what, this was really tough for me. And I think having those communities where you can talk about these things makes a massive difference. So if anyone's struggling, I hope that those two things can kind of, you know, give you the support you need.
And again, it goes back to the message of the show is that like you should ask for help
Yeah.
and you should feel empowered to do so.
Yeah.
But tell me about your monk life. Like that must have been amazing.
It was special.
I've always been so tempted to go away and do one of those retreats where, you know, you go to somewhere like India and you go to those places where you don't speak for a month or something like that. Like that must have just been the most enlightening experience.
Mate, now that you've said that, when you want to go, I'm going to take you.
Please,
Yeah,
'cause
you let
I
me know
would
when. Yeah.
absolutely love to go. I met a guy, I was on holiday earlier this year and he had just got back from a retreat. He did 2 weeks where he didn't make a sound
Mhm.
and was just explaining to me how eye-opening it was.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, to me, it was one of the best experiences of my life because even the stuff that I did then, I was 22 years old when I did it. Even the stuff that I did then, I don't even know if I'd be able to do it anymore now. But
Right.
there was such a like energy you had as a 22-year-old
Sure.
where it's just open to any experience and wanting to try it all out.
Amazing.
And I think for me, it was because, and it comes back to the people that have done things. When I was 18 was when I first met a monk. I never really knew what monks did or,
Sure,
or
right.
any of their practices. But I met a monk who I write about in my book who just blew my mind because he was the first person I met that I felt was at ease with himself. And when I was 18, I'd met people who were like rich and famous and, you know, beautiful and powerful and all this type of stuff. But I don't think I'd met anyone who was truly happy and
Sure.
content with themselves. Not happy like, oh, I'm so happy, life's amazing.
Right.
I mean more like happy with who
At
they
peace with
at
who
peace
they
with
are.
who they were.
Yeah, totally.
And for some reason at 18, that kind of like was an arrow straight to my heart where I was like, that's real. Like I want that.
Wow.
And it's so hard to explain because everyone's like, well, how did you know that at 18? And I was like, I don't know. It must have been how powerful he was. It's kind of like you wake up when the sun's out and the light's out and you just wake up because you feel that energy. And I felt it through him. And then I went to university and I'd talk to him and I'd meet him in the summers and Christmases. But I just decided, I was like, I want to do this because I'd met someone who I felt had emotional and mental mastery in a way that I'd never seen before.
Wow.
And so when I went out there, and whether it was the meditation training or whether it was the simplicity training of the lifestyle or whether it was the teachings and the values that you had to live by, I got so much from it that I honestly believe that anything that I'm good at doing today is because of what I learned during that time.
Yeah, of
And so
course,
anything I'm
amazing.
good at today is because of that.
Do you think that you found what he had
Yeah, I believe
Yeah.
so. And I would say that
or has?
Yeah,
He's still with us,
he's still
right?
with us,
Yeah.
Yeah, and I still see him every year.
Amazing.
And he still has it. Like,
Yeah.
it's like swag. Like it doesn't
Yeah,
go
yeah,
away.
yeah.
He still has it. And yeah, definitely. I got a glimpse into it. Obviously, he's been doing it for, nearly 30 years. And
Yeah,
I
wow.
only did it for 3. But you still get to a glimpse of it and you get
Sure.
an experience of it. So you know that it exists.
Right,
And I think that's half the battle too. Like even with your sobriety, it's like, you just need to know it exists.
Totally.
And then you're like, wow, there's this other side.
100%.
And even though it's a challenge, and even though I'm still trying to be more
100%.
mindful every day, and I'm still working on myself because it's
Of course, it's an
I know it.
endless,
Yeah, it's endless.
ongoing thing.
Yeah, I know, and I take a lot of friends and people I know on retreats there because just a couple of years ago I took someone that I love to one of the caves in Rishikesh. So one of the things I love about caves is that they're equally dark and silent.
Yeah.
So
wow.
it's almost like the first time, like we could be silent in this room and it would be silent, but the silence of a cave is just
a
different.
different level. Yeah.
And so when you go in there, and you can't see anything either. So you can't even
Wow.
see yourself.
So you're so deep into the cave that there's no light from the mouth of the cave
There's
anymore.
no life from the mouth of the cave.
Oh, I don't know about that, mate. That would really stress me out.
No, you hold hands. No,
right, yeah.
you don't hold hands. But
完璧じゃね
it's one of those experiences that
おい。
you actually get to
完璧や。
experience real
トレード
stillness
が
and
Wow.
real silence and real disconnection
Sure.
from everything around you,
大
and then you
通
can
りや
actually
全部
listen to yourself.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
I would love to do something like that. Something that I find myself doing a lot is
ダブル
if
ボト
I
ル決まりま
see
すね
a beautiful landscape or something, I will
そ
try
こ
and
でデカめのね
see if I can find an angle of it
え
where there's
烈
nothing
法
man-made in the
Mm.
view. Because
I
you know
love
what
that.
it's like? Like you see a beautiful
文化
hill
そ
or
の
something,
ね
and there's a telephone pole in the middle of it, or a lamppost or something. So doing something like that, where there is nothing but just
ああな
Mother Nature and
Yeah.
the silence and being with
おっ
yourself.
さん抜けたら売ろうと
I'm
思ってた
obsessed
の
with
か
nature. It's like one
Yeah,
of my
yeah.
biggest passions. I'm absolutely like
うん
this new Our
なん
Planet
か
show has
微
just
妙
come
だ
out.
な
One sitting, I've done the whole thing. So I would love to do something like that. So
Yeah.
the next time you go in,
Yeah,
let me know.
we'll figure
I'll
it
come
out.
with
Yeah,
you.
we'll
Yeah.
figure it out. No, where's a place I love nature too. I just took me and my wife just
こ
went
れ
to
が
Bali.
重
Oh, I
症
love
And
Bali.
yeah, and it was unbelievable. We went whitewater rafting,
even
and
know
it
that.
almost
Nice.
felt like Jurassic Park. I was just waiting for a dinosaur head to pop
Mhm.
out, and it was just beautiful. It was so lush. It was so natural. There were
Love
these
Bali.
waterfalls everywhere, and another place that I've loved nature-wise, India, of course, we mentioned, but Iceland.
I'd love to go
I got
to
to go to
Iceland.
Iceland a few years ago, and my friend was filming a documentary out there.
Hmm.
And so I got to experience it with the documentary travelers, and we went to a real glacier, and we went to,
Amazing.
you know, and it was incredible to just, it was the first time I felt like I'd landed on another planet.
Yeah, yeah,
It
yeah.
was just, I was like, this looks like nothing I've ever seen before in my life. Like I'm on another, like I could have gone into outer space and landed on another
There's a
planet.
reason why every single space film, Iceland is the first on the list for locations.
Oh, is that,
Oh
that-
my
I didn't
God.
know that. Yeah.
I'm thinking Interstellar probably
Yes,
shot in
I
Iceland.
went to the glacier, they saw,
Right,
yeah,
so
yeah.
I'm sure all
Yeah.
of those films, you know,
Yeah.
because you could do Mars, you could do Venus, all in, you know, in Iceland. I would love to go. I don't know. We were thinking about doing some climbing, and I'm not sure about how I feel about glaciers and walking across them and just falling and never being found.
Yeah, we walked across them, and obviously there were teams there.
Sure.
But and then they had an expert, and they went down into the glacier, like they went into one, like, and it was really scary because while we were walking on the glacier, and we've got I forgot what those little boots are called, the ones with the kind of like,
The little prongs.
yeah, but I forgot what they're called. But anyway, we had those on, and
Crampons.
crampons. Okay,
Yeah,
crampons.
there
Thank
we
you for
go.
that, Jack. And so we're wearing these crampons, and literally it was like 3 steps further, and you would have fallen, and you don't see it.
And you would never be
And
found.
you would never be found,
Ever.
and you'd never know. And it would be like that movie, what's it, 126 hours? where
Yeah.
that guy had to
でも
saw
よ
off
か
his
った
own
な
arm.
126 hours, mate. In 10 minutes, the ice
Yeah.
would just. Yeah, no, that's a bit too far for me. Yeah.
If you went with a group of experts and all the rest of it, I think
Yeah,
you'd
but
be-
you've seen the documentary. Sometimes the experts go out and it's a one-way story. They don't ever come back, you know?
Yeah. No, you got to be careful. I
Yeah.
agree. I'll show you some videos later though, because it was pretty.
love to, yeah,
it was,
please.
pretty spectacular. It was really amazing. No, I love that with your journey with sobriety. And again, the other thing we were talking about this earlier, going back to it, was you decided to take a break from acting
Yeah.
because you were doing this role. It was really tough and challenging.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, you need some time. And again, you were saying that was misconstrued. And I just, before we dive into why you needed to take a break and what was challenging about it, I just wanted to if you wanted to give context to that, and you don't have to, but if you wanted
Sure.
to, just to clarify what you meant and what was going on there.
It's only a break from acting because I'm an actor.
Yeah.
It's not like the acting itself. I just have been so lucky that in my life, I've been working so much. I just wanted to take a break. I just wanted to be in one place for a while. I wanted to be with my friends, be with my family, move into my house. So it wasn't necessarily, oh my God, I need to have a break from acting because it's too much. I
Yeah.
just needed to have a break from traveling and working. And also, I've done so much of my growing up on the road. I needed to do a lot of growing up at home, paying my water bill, paying my council tax and sorting out my bins and all that sort of stuff that they don't teach you at school, which I think there should be a lesson. I think there should be a lesson at school that's called life, which is like laundry, basic cooking. Like, I didn't realize you have to pay for your water. I just thought that was a luxury of living in England. That
Yeah.
the water comes out the sky and then it comes out your tap. I was so behind on my water bill, I didn't realize. I'm up to date now, don't
Yeah.
worry. So yeah, I just wanted to take this break. And it's a shame, again, talking about the press and how they can spin things. It's a shame that this year off has come after this incredibly hard job and that they kind of ran with this idea that, yes, the show did break me, and yes, it was difficult, but I could have gone back to work. I was always planning on taking this break after this job. So thank you for giving me the time to sort of clarify that. I am loving having time off, and going back to work is something that isn't really on my radar yet. I'm just loving being with my family and my friends and enjoying, the fruits of my labor a little
Yeah,
bit and
yeah.
traveling and seeing the world. Because, we get to see the world for work, but it's different.
Yeah.
Going off of your own accord and seeing these places and meeting people is what I love. I'm very social, which is one of the things I found so difficult about giving up alcohol, is because I was like, that's my key to my social life. And then I realized, I was like, no, you're just actually naturally a really social person. The alcohol is just an additive to that.
Yeah.
So get rid of it. So yeah, so my year off has been amazing. I'm loving it. I'm 7 months into it now. I have a job to go to, but obviously we're going through this writer's strike right now.
Yeah.
We're unsure as to where we are. I'm hoping that, the writers can make a deal and will be looked after as they should be, because it'd be great to get back to work, but I'm in no rush.
Yeah,
I'm really loving some time at home.
Yeah. Because how old are you now?
27.
Yeah, and so if you've been working since you were 9, or at least
Right.
later on into your teens, I think
Yeah.
I think people forget that. And I coach personally a lot of musicians who go on tour a lot.
Sure.
And I just finished a 40-city world tour for my second book. And we did like 40 cities, maybe in like 75, 80 days, maybe. Like it was intense. And we went all over the world. So we did like
God,
15.
I've never done anything like that.
Yeah,
That is intense.
did 15 cities in the US and then 25 cities around the world. And so we did everywhere from Paris, Amsterdam, Berlin, Melbourne. We did 3 shows at the Sydney Opera House, Brisbane, did Singapore, did 5 shows in India, did Dubai.
Wow.
Like it was amazing. I had one of the best experiences of my life. At the same time, I was reflecting on my music clients who have to do 100, 150 shows. A lot of them pull out of doing their tours. A lot of them announce, kind of like you're saying, I took a break.
Sure.
A lot of them will announce and say, you know what, guys, I can't
do it
finish.
anymore.
I can't do it anymore. And it's really interesting because I messaged some of them straight away saying, I always could understand why you needed that.
Sure.
Now I actually have actual empathy for you.
100%.
Because now I'm on the road and I can see how displacing it is.
Sure.
And I'm older and I have a certain set of skills that help me with that based on my monk life and all the rest of it. But I can imagine if you've been touring since you were 15 years old, which is what a lot of these artists have done.
Yeah.
You've, like you just said, you grow up on the road.
Sure.
And then all of a sudden you're like, well, who am I and who are my friends and what is my life? And now everyone that I pay is my friend and that's the only friends I have. And like, and so it's really interesting how when you get a little glimpse into someone's life. And then on the last show I had was in Barcelona.
I love Barcelona.
Yeah, it was amazing. And the night before my last show, Live Nation, who was doing my show there, they also do Coldplay's tour, and they were like, do you want to come to watch Coldplay? I was like, I'd love to watch Coldplay. So when the night before to watch Coldplay, it was unbelievable. They did 4 sold-out shows of 65,000 people each night in Barcelona. And I went to watch the 4th night, and Chris Martin and the crew were just unbelievable.
Yeah.
And then I found out it was the 89th show, and I was thinking, gosh, like it is so hard. Like it's just so hard, and all their families are with them and traveling with them and all the rest of it. And so I want to touch